the alarm! To arms! They are here!
I'm Cody Higley, and tonight, as always, we're joined by Jason Foreman, Robert Landon, and our guest for this evening is Damion Greenawalt, who has thrown his hat in the ring for the Republican candidacy in the state representative of the 86th district. So, Damion, welcome to the Watchmen's Report. And our guest for this evening is Damion Greenawalt. Oh, we have some feedback, Jay.
Yeah, I'm hearing some feedback.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully that's fixed. So, Damion, welcome to the Watchmen's Report.
Thank you. It's I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Came to our attention here a couple of days ago. I think I saw a post on Facebook said that you were running for the Republican nomination for state rep of the 86th district. And again, folks, that covers all of Union County and a good portion of Marion County, including the city of Marion. So right now, as far as announced candidates, so these are just people who have announced that they're running and they're going around and collecting signatures. Those signatures have to be turned in, those petitions have to be turned in to the Board of Elections tomorrow by 4 p.m. And then the review of the petitions to make sure that all the signatures are valid and that they have enough signatures to get on the ballot is February 17th. So we won't really know who is going to appear on the primary ballot in May until the petitions are certified by the Board of Elections on February 17th. But this fellow here that's on our show tonight, Damion Greenawalt, has announced that he is running. He has been collecting signatures. How's that process going, Damion?
So essentially, I already turned in my ballot. At this point, it's up to the Board of Elections to go through their process of review and a little rundown. Though Union County will send that. Well, since for example, I had a mixed petitions, so all of my support from Marion obviously gets sent back to the Marion Board of Elections. They verify addresses, names, all that fun stuff. Send it back to Union County. Union County will verify any names and addresses within Union County that I collected. After that point, yes, the Union County Board of Elections will certify or not. I guess it depends. This is entirely, just so you know, this is my entire first time running for anything. It's also a learning process, so just kind of going with the flow at this point.
Well, there's nothing like trial by fire. You know, you gotta jump in there and just do it, as they say. So congratulations to you on taking that step. There was I think it was a Pew study that said that less than 2% of all Americans will ever run for public office. So you're in that elite group, Damion. So congratulations on that. Now, you look like you're a young fella. You don't have the grays like I do, like Jay does, and Roberts is gone, so we can't really tell if he would have gray or not.
It's there.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? I know that you are a Marion boy, at least right now, residing in the city of Marion. Were you born in Marion? grew up in Marion? Where'd you go to school? Tell
So,
us the whole background.
okay, I'll give you a whole backstory. I was born actually in Morrow County. I was one of the Morrow County Hospital did away with their what is it? I can't even pronounce it, but their nursery department area. They did away with that somewhere around 2099. I was one of the last few babies out of that hospital before they cut out that department. Afterwards, I was raised in between Marion and Morrow County. I actually went to Elgin up until my 4th grade year. After going to Elgin in 4th grade, my parents moved to Knox County, which a little bit of a distance there. I grew up from 4th to 5th grade. It wasn't quite too long, but we stayed there for a few years. Come back halfway in Morrow County. I went to Cardington High School. I actually dropped out my 11th grade year. Turned around with my grandma's support. I was able to go and get my GED, actually like 6 months late from what I should have gotten my diploma with. After that, I worked in retail my whole life, most of my life. The last 4 years have been manufacturing, long 8, 12-hour days, but prior, I'm 28 now. I was in retail up until about 24. So, started as like a cart pusher at Myers. Literally went from cart pusher, cashier. From there, I've just kind of moved around in retail. Realized I had my son, and retail just was not family friendly. So, I was like, I gotta do something, that A, provides for my son, provides for me, B, has better time frames for my family. So found manufacturing kind of suits that a little better. So I've been in manufacturing ever since then. But I mean, that's I guess a round nutshell of everything. I've lived in Marion for the last 6 or 8 years, like consecutively. I mean, pretty much all my stuff's here.
What ward do you live in? Do you live in?
So I'm actually in the 5th ward.
5th ward. Okay.
Yeah.
You've been there for 6, 8 years. Now, what company are you working at?
So I actually work for AGC Automotive. And,
what do they do?
So we make automotive glass. Toyota, Honda, pretty much all your big name brand companies. We make glass for all of those big name brand companies, even, Mazda and a few others. Like the Cybertrucks, we actually make the glass for the Cybertrucks. Kind of cool. Literally like that big, but.
Oh, wow. So
cool
where's that factory located?
That is actually in Bell Fountain. So it's about an hour.
A little bit of a drive for you.
It is. In terms of, pay wise and stuff like that, I found that I've got, like, I guess the best option I have. I also have a problem with my foot. I was in an accident a few years back. So I have a slight disability with that. The company works with that disability, and for example, out of 12 hours, I actually have a restriction for 6 hours of sitting. So, they're very accommodating. And I think that's hard to find in a corporation employer. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of, there's a lot of respect. So, aside from the pay, I have a lot of reasons why I go there.
It sounds like a good place to be, and they treat you well. So, worked in retail, so you got your GED, and hats off for that. Going back and achieving that. and then you work in retail, work in manufacturing. Now you're a young guy, but what lessons have you learned about, I guess, careers or just work ethic?
So, I
What?
guess to kind of answer your question, I actually I'm working on an undergraduate degree in pre-law and paralegal studies. Um, Career-wise, long-term, I want to eventually hold a Juris Doctorate, but I mean that's like 5 years down from this year. So, I mean that's long-term. Um, what got me into that is I've always been okay. So even when I was like 5, and I can remember this literally like yesterday. Um, I had typed up on my dad's old computer like a contract to try to get people to give me $5 a week. I swear I went up to all of their parents. I went to all their friends and I was like, "Hey, you want to sign this contract?" And they're like, "Why would I give you $5?" And so, legal concept has always been like fascinating to me. So, touchy subject, but one of the issues that happened to Marion, my dad, if you have not researched, my dad was actually convicted on a murder charge. He is sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. I sat through that trial. I watched the concepts. I watched the breakdown of, jury inside, outside. Kind of got to dig into that, and I was like, you know what? I can see myself in this kind of field. The issue, or I guess the problem as to like why I want to fill that role is I think a lot of attorneys don't communicate with people. I feel like there's a big gap in between like a professional side and me and you as a normal person on the street. So that's what kind of got me interested in, I guess, the whole background. Politics, that kind of got built in. I've thought about running in local elections like city council or something like that. But I also have to think about, obviously I can't commit. I don't want to give, for example, the Fifth Ward commitment to represent them if I can't even attend the meetings due to my work schedule. So obviously there's scheduling conflicts and stuff I have to take into account for what I'm looking into, and especially commitment wise. Obviously I'm not trying to sign up for anything I can't handle, or I don't feel like I would be able to handle.
So if you win, now I think state rep pays about 72,000 and some change, as I recall. So if you win, Damion, are you quitting your job and going to be devoting your full attention to representing the 86th district?
So realistically, obviously, personally, I believe if we have a representative, they obviously need to put their face in front of the district. How are they supposed to know what problems are going on if they're not involving themselves in the various localities? Marion's one. I mean, you have Marion, Richwood, Waldo's outside. You have Marysville. I've went over them. I might have to double check with them, but there's multiple localities, and the district's quite large. A representative should obviously be making their strides to try to involve themselves with everybody. Marion has a water issue and other situations going on. I don't think anybody would argue with our current representative speaking on behalf of the issues and kind of showing guidance. I think that's where we also have an issue. You know, people look up to politicians, whether they want to admit it or not. That's who's, you know, that's where our future is politicians. So, I'm sorry.
What politicians are you following, Damion? Most
Well,
most politicians are contemptible, man. I can count on two hands how many
okay, look,
politicians that I respect or that are deserving of respect. No, I'm just messing. You know, there's probably at least three hands worth of decent politicians. You know,
I mean,
but
I'm not saying they're all good. I'm saying there are some, I guess, a few. Realistically, though, they should be somebody you could look up to. I'm not saying
ideally,
like, yeah, that's the goal would be to be able to look to them for guidance. I mean, why are we electing somebody if we can't look for guidance in that person? There's a lot of laws that are outlined or, you know, dictated by the people we elect.
I hear you. He's a young man, folks. You know, the weight of the world hasn't crushed his spirit yet. So just wait, Damion. Just wait. When you get my age, when you get Jason's age, when you get Robert, Richard, I don't know how old you are, fella, but you know, the world will wake you up a little bit. But you know, we need people that have faith. We need people that have faith in the system that go in with, you know, kind of the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Am I the only person that's ever seen that film with the late great Jimmy Stewart?
It's been a while. I've seen it.
It's a great movie. I recommend everybody in the audience to go check out Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. The story, he gets Jimmy Stewart gets appointed as a junior senator, believes in, you know, he's kind of a Boy Scout, believes in the whole narrative of representative government, goes to Washington, D.C., finds out it's crookeder than shit, and then he goes to war against it. And he wins. So kind of a good story there. But Damion, I mean, as far as I think having representatives who are just average guys, average girls, you know, somebody that has a story such as yours. You said your father, is he currently in prison?
Yeah, he's currently incarcerated.
Okay, you know, that and working in retail, working in manufacturing, kind of a real life experience. Whereas we find a lot of these people that enter politics that become career politicians, they have never worked a day in their lives. They've had a silver spoon up their ass their entire existence, and they get in bed with dark money, big moneyed interests, and then they look out for those interests. So I'm all in favor of real people getting involved in politics, trying to affect change for the good, for the betterment of us here in the real world, because that's the other thing you'll find out, I think, when you get a little bit further down life's path, is that you've got the leftists, you know, and the people that look out for welfare because it is big government and it justifies their existence of more bureaucrats, bigger government, more spending on welfare and things like that. Then you've got the corporate welfare, the corporate interests. You got one side political spectrum that looks out for them. And then you've got us here in the middle that have nobody looking out for us, but yet we have to pay for everything, between these exorbitant property taxes that are taxing us out of our homes, income taxes, payroll taxes, you name it, we get the shaft. So as state representative, Damion, property taxes are a big issue. So what is your opinion or your position on the issue of property taxes? How do we get them under control? Are you in favor of axing the tax and getting rid of it and make these politicians in Columbus put together a spending package that is much smaller and much more responsible and something that the average people can afford? So what's your position on that? Probably the hottest topic in the state of Ohio.
Oh, so that's probably, yeah, it's probably one of the biggest issues that I've encountered when I was actually going out to get signatures. A lot of people are like, well, how do you feel about property taxes? Truth is if you dig into money and you follow money, and I have not personally did public records requests for financial records for schools. But if you do a Google search, you can find, for example, Columbus City Schools surplus to $400 million surplus. Let me look that up for details. I believe that was for 2025.
It's a lot of money.
Or proposed cutting. Where's it at?
I'll give you props for kind of throwing that number out there pretty quick. So it sounds like you were studying this topic.
I was looking over a lot because I have a guy that I work with who is absolutely against property taxes, like without a doubt. And so I've talked to him a lot about the subject. His thing was it's a district near Columbus. Let me look. He was talking about Hilliard, I think it was. I believe he said Hilliard is pushing like high revenue surpluses. I don't know what the exact numbers are, obviously, because different sources will skew those numbers one way or another. However, I do know if you look at, for example, River Valley locally, pulls in about, I think it's a 1.6 million surplus, or that's what they have wrote over in surplus. Well, I guess to break it down, do I think we should be paying property taxes as owner occupied dwellings? No. But at the same time, I feel like if we eliminate property taxes in the terms of all around, corporations are obviously going to be able to benefit from that end of abolishing property taxes too. So I think the ideal middle ground here would be that if you own your home, it should be a tax-free credit. You got homestead taxes. You have different. I don't know if those are still a thing. I know my grandpa had it. He was older. I know you have various tax credits, but why can't we actually cut back to the middle class? We don't. Why give corporations leverage or cut out the funding when realistically they should have to pay that funding? I don't personally own into any big business. I don't collect any kind of dividend. I don't, I work 12 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. So realistically, all that would do is help those people, me, you who work, who live in our home, who are just trying to, get by with our family and survive. That's who that ultimately would help. Now, as a whole, I think there needs to be some serious budget cuts, some serious looking into the surpluses that these schools have. I do know that there was a bill at some point in the state level that tried to limit school fundings in terms of surpluses, but that was voted down in terms of becoming any kind of state regulation.
I think DeWine the rhino swine, I think vetoed that, I believe.
Yeah, I know it was shot down somewhere in there, and I don't.
Well, here's the trade-off, and if I can interject, fellas. So, because I remember having this debate with former Mayor Scott Schertzer and Democrats when I was serving on council about emergency reserves and things like that, even at the local level. And from the Democratic standpoint, it was that, well, we're overtaxing people if we're stashing money and we're, building up a reserve. And at the time, it was a big hot button issue because Kasich had, I think it was $1 or $2 billion as a rainy day fund, and Democrats were all up in arms over that. But the other thing too is if we don't have a reserve fund, whether at the local or state level, when it comes time where they have an economic crash or they have some sort of financial constraints, they're going to raise taxes eventually. And then it's going to be passed as an emergency measure, and it's going to really make people angry. And so my thought process is if you have it at a healthy level, and when that time comes, you've already got that cushion to weather that storm, and you're not worrying about pushing some sort of tax increase through at the last minute. And that's if you can do it in time. If not, then you're talking about even more extreme budget cuts, layoffs, things like that, and then that can really exacerbate the issue. So everybody knows we need to have rainy day funds. I mean, you as an individual or as a family, you need to have a rainy day fund. And from my perspective, I don't think government's any different. But to your point, I think the scrutiny with these property taxes, I don't know if it's necessarily just the property tax, like with certain school districts, like River Valley, they have an income tax, I believe, that they passed. Isn't that right, Cody?
Yeah, that's what all these school districts have been doing. Instead of having corresponding cuts to spending, they have decided to maintain or continue to grow their spending and then just supplement it with an income tax, because all these districts in the rural areas of Ohio are suffering from declines in student enrollment. It's actually quite substantial. But when you look into the birth rates or the fertility rates in rural Ohio, they're not at replacement values. And it's just getting worse and worse as we progress and, we get away from the baby boomers and Gen X and that sort of thing, because millennials and Gen Z, they don't have kids. And so these districts, that might have peaked in enrollment 10 or 20 years ago, instead of saying, oh, we got to make difficult decisions because with declining enrollment, you're not getting that state money come in. You're not getting that $11,000 per head that you otherwise would if you had that student enrolled just for existing. So instead of saying, hey, our enrollment's declined by 20% or 30%, we need to do a 20 or 30% cut to our staff and our spending, they're saying, oh, the teachers unions, and we have all these administrators that we hired, like we have to give them a job, we have to continue to employ them, and we actually need more people. So they say, we ain't cutting shit, we're just going to go make a emotional plea to the voters for passing an income tax or passing an operational levy of some sort on property taxes. And they make threats. They'll say, oh, well, if you don't pass this, or we're going to have to cut the music program, or we're going to have to cut football or make football so expensive that nobody can play. That's what leverage they use. They plead to emotion instead of doing what is right. If it was a private business, you would say, oh, my sales have declined for 20 or 30%, so I'm going to have to cut my expenditures by 20 or 30%. That's not what they do. So all these districts are just implementing these income taxes, and a lot of them that started that's all new. It's kind of relatively new. I think the first one was maybe passed in the late 90s, mid 90s, something like that in the state of Ohio. Now we're getting more and more of them, and the ones that passed them 10, 15 years ago, they're wanting to increase the rate. And it's just getting out of hand, just like everything else. I mean, the bottom line is they have to cut spending. You have to get rid of big government. We've had 60 years of big government and big government spending. It's not sustainable. As a country, we're what now $40 trillion in national debt with no plan to be able to tackle that. And it's just, you have to cut spending. So that's my rant on you brought it up, Robert. You baited me with that. So
It's not hard, bro.
it's not hard at all. Hey, well, we were joined while we were talking, Damion. We've got Richard McDonald here. Richard is the newest member of the group. So Richard, welcome to your first ever broadcast of the Watchmen's Report.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Damion, okay, so that's a little bit on the property tax. What other issues are you finding out there on the campaign trail that are kind of hot issues in the 86th district?
So really, aside from that, hot topics, Marion's got a lot going on for itself.
No way.
I mean,
You jest.
Marion itself
Surely
is
you
a hot
jest.
topic. Like that you just described a whole category.
That's
Just
a fact.
rattle them off, man. You know, then we can chat on those items, because that's what we do here on the Watchmen Report. We focus a lot on Marion's deficiencies and dysfunctions. So lay them on us, man.
The water's terrible, absolutely terrible.
It's not.
There's
that's
nothing
a
wrong with the
conspiracy.
water. Nothing's wrong with the water.
I don't know where they're testing this. Are they
Ohio
testing this up
Fire
the river?
nothing
Are they
wrong
testing
with
it down the
water.
river? Like, where exactly are they testing these locations? Because you get, I feel like I'm getting the same printed off document every week, and it's like,
Yeah, right.
not like
I think they're going
something's
down
got
to like Peacock water, and I think they're taking some of Peacock, those water cooler waters, and I think
Yeah,
they're
my
doing
grandma's
tests
got
on
one of
that.
those suckers.
That's what you need. You can't drink that shit that they're trying to pump into your homes from Aqua, Ohio, from the contaminated Little Scioto River.
Based on
It's ridiculous.
40 year
Yeah.
metrics. I mean, they haven't revised that stuff for God knows how long, 40 years, 20 years. I have to research it, but I'm getting there.
But if you say anything's wrong, Damion, even if your skin is burning and your eyes, you can't see because you got a little bit of aqua water in your eyes, you can't say that there's anything wrong with it, man. Aqua Ohio, the spokesman came out today and said that it's just geosmin, it's harmless, organic, it's no problem whatsoever. Just drink the frickin' water and love it, right? So I mean, you're gonna be dubbed a conspiracy theorist, a right-wing radical, like all of us here on the Watchmen's Report. If you
Right.
go around
So,
saying that there's something
if you
wrong
wanna-
with the water.
Nazis.
You want to know how that can be resolved? Let's look here. Let's look at the what's the House committees?
Are you talking about in the state of Ohio?
Yeah. The question is why isn't anybody on the, where's our, which one's water? Taxation, economic. I'm trying to look for the actual one so I can be technically right. What is it? Natural resources?
Probably. Yeah, probably natural resources, I'd imagine. No, there really hasn't been much in the way of
Why aren't they
commentary.
pulling the directors of Aqua? Why aren't they pulling these people in for House committee hearings? They could be questioning all of these people and finding out what's going on.
They could.
I mean, what is it? 30,000 people in Marion, 36, give or take 1 or 2,000.
35-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a chunk of people. I mean, that's a big chunk of population. So why why aren't we raising this to a higher level? I guess that's the real concern, especially when you can't even drink the water and it's testing absurd amounts of various chemicals and what is it, sedimentary,
Geomosin.
objects,
Geosmin.
whatever it is.
Well, they go off of EPA, but again, the EPA is a government entity. So who appoints the leadership to these government entities, these bureaucracies, these agencies? It's other politicians. It's other members of the establishment and the elite. And who pays for the campaigns for the establishment and the elite politicians? Big corporations. So,
Well,
I mean,
I'll tell you, I believe, and don't hold me to this, but I believe when I was back in council, I remember in political circles, I'm not going to name names here, but I remember somebody saying, I think this guy's name was Ballinger. I don't know if it was him as an individual or if he wrote it on behalf of Aqua, but I remember people talking about Scott Schertzer getting donations from a guy named Ballinger who worked at Aqua. So they definitely do that stuff. They do give money to local politicians as well.
that's what I mean. So, in my personal cynical skeptic heart, that's shrunk down 3 sizes, kind of like the reverse Grinch situation. That's the reality of the situation, man. Is they're only going to do anything if they have a political motive to do so. So let's say there's another party that comes into power. They can point fingers at this EPA official because he was appointed by the other party, or they didn't donate enough money, so they're pissed, or whatever it is. Like, unless you get citizen journalists and you get it's a big enough of an issue that you can't ignore it anymore. Because like in Flint, Michigan, you had that complete cluster F, and all these people started getting sick with
there's nothing to see there
disease.
either, if I remember
And
correctly.
that was the narrative then for so long, was that there's no issue, everything's fine, just drink the freaking water. And then people started getting lead poisoning and everything else. So then it was forced. And that's kind of what we're unfortunately faced with, is that unless people actually speak up, speak out, get together, and get the story out, then they ain't gonna do shit. Unfortunately. Richard, what are your thoughts on that? Are you a cynical bastard like I am?
Yeah. Obviously you got corporate interests. They're not going to advocate for the people. So somebody has to advocate for them. The institutions we trust to do that obviously aren't working. So it's ultimately going to be at the hands of the people and the consumer to run that back up the scale and see where we can make some movement. But they're not going to police themselves, obviously. It doesn't add to their bottom line to police themselves. So they're going to, mitigate and deny, and then move to a point where people get quiet about it. Probably, get rid of the odor, that type of thing, and then let it sail. That's, obviously it swept under the rug last time. So, they're not gonna make any big movements. And then at the same time bring in additional costs to the consumer. So it's like every time you get to share in the downside, and then you get to finance the upside, and then you get left with crappy tap water at the end of the day. So
exactly. All this in the midst. So they had that meeting here within the past week, where Aqua went to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, Damion, asking for a substantial increase to the water rates for the area. What kind of balls do you have if you're one of these officials at Aqua, Ohio? We're poisoning you with this shit water from the Little Scioto. It's full of creosote. It's full of forever chemicals. sewage, you name it. But damn it, you're going to give us 21% more. Damion, is this outrageous in your mind?
I would definitely agree. Like, if you were selling somebody an absolute piece of trash, I guess, how are you going to ask for more? You know, I don't want to compare it to like water that comes out of my toilet, but if you're going to give me that coming out of my sink, what makes you feel like you have any authority to say, hey, we got more costs, so we need to up this? You were profiting how much for how long? And none of those profits went back into the system that you're supposed to be, maintaining, supporting, operating. Why? I know, actually, great example, Cardington, the village of Cardington, all of those residents currently pay like a $50 surcharge because of the town undergoing. I don't know the exact details, but I since I went to the high school, I knew a little bit of it. Back in like the 50s, they had a bunch of like clay pipes or whatever break. It was older pipes. They busted and stuff. They had to get loans to pretty much repair the entire town's infrastructure of water. And now their water bills, like my mom, 10 years ago, her water bill was like $150 a month for me and her in an apartment. So, and that was 10 years ago. So I couldn't even imagine what they're currently paying or what they've adjusted those rates to be. But I just find it, I think it's crazy. And if somebody, I guess it's not if somebody, if corporations and companies aren't held accountable, if they're not held to the same standard me and you would be, I mean, they'd probably take the pipes under the ground and say it was your problem, something on your end. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's a lot of, as I get older, corporation turns into, well, how can we make $1? It's not how can we better our product. It's how can we, shrinkflation? How can we shrink the product and get more money out of it? How can we, provide a lesser product and get more money? Capitalism was literally built on better, bigger, better. The profit was there, but you're always looking to be the bigger and better competitor. And I just feel like that kind of went out the door. Why does Aqua have to fix their stuff? They have no competitor. Who are they competing with? Delco has a district or whatnot. They have districts or jurisdictions, just like counties and everything else. But if there is no real competition or there's no real reason for there to be a competition, I guess it goes into the argument of a monopoly. And, you don't have to own the whole line, but I mean, if you're exclusively the provider for, let's use a state for an example, 1 out of 50 states, I mean, you have a good chunk of profit that you're guaranteed. I mean, that it's literally guaranteed, Aqua has guaranteed income from every resident here in town outside of who's on Delco's water, which I think that goes into like Morrow County or out of the area. But, I mean, what do? They up the price, but you can't, it's not like you can call up Delco and ask them how much the rate would be for you to switch over. So where's the competition at? There isn't. So I feel like that allows, people like Aqua or companies who have exclusive zones we can up the charge. We can provide, less work, and kind of go that route. I guess talking nationally, you see McDonald's, they had a big, you've seen headlines to where like they had less business and people were going there less because they upped all the prices astronomically versus the other competitors. Well, you have competitors in this area. So, you have Burger King, you have Wendy's, you have Taco Bell, there's 100 competitors in food. So McDonald's upping their price, nobody has to go there. They can result into the cheaper option, the better option. The company that takes pride in actually servicing people. And essentially, I think that's where some of our issues fall into is Aqua has that exclusive zones. You want to talk about Ohio Health? Ohio Health has exclusive zones. You're talking about massive amounts of money that they're pretty much guaranteed in their pockets because I don't know if that's state level. I don't know who is operating that or who controls that. Obviously, you have lobbyists, you have corporate interest and stuff, but I can notice that. So if we I guess break that up, that ultimately will I guess my thing is if Ohio Health has to compete with Avita Health Systems at like an actual competitor level, well, I bet your doctor bills goes down because now you got competing health centers with your utilities. Electricity, you can call up service providers, you can call up suppliers, you can get rates, you can, kind of juggle that because I don't know when we passed it, but we passed a state law to allow utility choice in terms of who supplies your electrical power. Something similar to that in water, I think that would resolve a lot of issues. Obviously, if Aqua's not guaranteed your $80 a month out of your household or $150 a month out of your household, and you can call up, Delco the next month and switch it, they're going to be a little more cautious as to, the business that they're handling. They're not just going to be, what's it matter? Hey, it's Geomison or what is it?
Geosmin.
Geosmin, yeah. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to be like, well, they're going to switch over to Delco next week. We either going to fix this today or, we're losing millions. And I just think that's where the issue, I think that's where a big issue is. And we just got to break out that exclusivity in corporations.
Well, I think and those are really great points, Damian. I think the other thing too is like they could have been more transparent. Like, let's say there was nothing going on. Like, just the way they handled it, in my mind, my opinion, it wasn't the best way to handle it. It wasn't very transparent. I mean, just recently, what was it today, guys, that they finally sent an email to the mayor and the mayor posted the email from Aqua, or was that yesterday? And this is like weeks after the first incident. And so, they're not really doing anything that's very transparent. There's not a press conference. You just get a letter or an email. And so I don't think it was very transparent. And I don't think there was a lot of public officials that getting ahead of it either. I mean, did you guys see anybody? I haven't seen anybody. I mean, I know I've been pretty busy too with my work schedule, but I haven't seen anybody really getting ahead of this thing.
No, and I think City of Marion officials kind of took a step back because it's Aqua. So from their perspective, if they go off of what Aqua says, then that's the safe narrative for them to say, well, I don't know. Aqua said this. Aqua said they're running tests, and it's just harmless geosmin, even though geosmin should be treated with carbon-based treatment as opposed to chlorine-based treatment. And meanwhile, everybody in the city of Marion is complaining that their houses smell like pool halls and pool water, and it burns and everything. Well, what's that tell you? It tells you that it was something else in the water. It's not geosmin. It's not this harmless organic, compound. They're trying to kill something, dousing it heavily with a chlorine-based treatment. And then they say that they did not use anti-corrosion chemicals when they did that back in December, which the risk there is a repeat of the Flint disaster. They did the same thing. They did not use those additives, those anti-corrosive additives. They went heavy on the chlorine, and then all that lead from those old 120-year-old pipes leached out into the water supply. So, Damion, I agree with Robert. That's intuitive. I mean, the free market and competition should be the basis of a healthy economy. And we've seen so much consolidation of different aspects, different sectors of this country's economy, especially over the past 60 years in this age of big government, to where you're left with Ohio Health. And Ohio Health is a horrible organization, very just power hungry, money hungry, very cold in its treatment of you, not warm, not anything positive. It's not everybody, the employees, because I'm going to piss people off. There's all these employees of Ohio Health and its subsidiaries and affiliates. I'm not trying to say that everybody at Ohio Health sucks or is evil or anything like that. I'm saying as an entity, as this big corporate healthcare system, Ohio Health sucks. And you can go across the board to all these big, heartless, soulless, big corporations, like Damion said, that just kind of get away with whatever. They don't care. They don't care about a quality product or the best service. That's not their driving force. Their driving force is that they're the only one that exists. And they got to that point because of their lobbying efforts with the politicians, getting in bed with the politicians to where then they can corner the market and they can basically have a de facto monopoly. So, I don't know. As far as the water issue, the other thing I'm going to rant on here tonight, because I said I was in a ranting mood, is you got all these protests against Trump, these no king protests, anti-ICE, all sponsored by this leftist radical organization, Citizen for Democracy. Where are these fuckers, with Aqua? Why don't they go down on Center Street and protest the water issue? Or why didn't they show up at that PUCO meeting and protest there and speak their mind? No, only like 30 people showed up. And from what I was told by some friends of mine that attended, half of them were elected officials. They can go out here and they can protest how much they hate Trump and all this kind of stuff. But what does that do other than make a spectacle of nothingness? Do something that matters to the people.
Tell us how you really feel, Cody.
This kind of stuff, huh?
I said, tell us how you really feel, Cody.
Yeah, it's just maddening on something like this in this community that actually impacts you. Nobody gives a shit. But by God, I can get 100 paid people or ship-in people, or even if they're not paid, whatever. I can get them out there and say, "Oh, Trump's evil. Trump's evil. He's a dictator. He's horrible," and all this stuff. But get your asses out there and protest Aqua, Ohio.
Well, don't you?
Something that's actually going to benefit your fellow man here in Marion, Ohio. All right, Jay, what are your thoughts, man?
I mean, we keep getting called conspiracy theorists for all this stuff, but we haven't been proven wrong yet. So, I mean, we have test results for the water stuff and the other subjects. You know how I feel about all that craziness, but these companies, they make me a nervous wreck, because anybody that's, a little bit older like ourselves, and probably you too, Damion, have seen instances where these companies will cover for themselves and try to nothing to see here, and then all of a sudden you have a Flint, Michigan, or a 3 Mile Island, or some other crazy happening that was nothing to see here, and it's just ridiculous and very sad. Hopefully that's not the case here, but we do have I'd probably say as of this afternoon 1,500 complaints, maybe more if I went back through all the comments and stuff like that over the past since December. So the test results and what that Pure HTO conducted at a lab and supplied to us, which we did publish on MariaWatch.com, and what's being said by the company Aqua is not matching what the citizens are saying, the pictures that we're getting, the test results we're getting from the citizens. It's just not matching. And those are telltale signs that something's absolutely incorrect. And I will add that Pure HTO did elaborate with Cody and Mr. Landon and I, and through email and other communications, broadcastings like that, that they thought that the chemical cleanup all of a sudden in December was meant to try to stop a bigger problem. And when we found out that we were getting more complaints, we were in touch with the same company, and we asked them what they thought of these test results because it was very concerning. And Pure HTO basically said, filter your water. It looks like they're trying to deal with something that's way bigger than what they're disclosing. So I think they need to look real close at it. And we've been in communication with, city council and other people about this. So hopefully we can get something done, some kind of oversight over this, because we've asked for test result numbers. We've asked, the city and Aqua for actual hard numbers, so that we can take a look at them. And we have yet to receive those. And the city, of course, doesn't own or operate Aqua. So they just basically say, we don't have that data because it's not our company. My question is always, okay, well, you have these sudden issues that are, far reaching. Why don't you have the numbers from, why didn't you request these things? Why aren't these things being watched?
Well, and part
Very
of
true.
me thinks, like, with the whole like ICE thing, the Minnesota protests, and kind of to Jay's point with like these scare tactics and things with Aqua and everybody calling this conspiracy theories. What I think is, and this is my opinion, what I think this whole Minnesota ICE protests debacle is really a cover up to all the fraud that's going on in Minnesota with their Medicaid. I mean, we saw that here in Ohio. Like, did you guys see, like, Trump? I think he said that they think it's going to reach $19 billion in fraud with Minnesota's Medicaid department. I think that's astronomical. And the fact that the Democrats have just let this go on for so long, like nobody's caught anything, no tips whatsoever. It's just very interesting to me, like the timing of everything. What do you guys think about that? Or is it just me?
All right. I got a rant. This is another main rant of mine. I apologize, Damion, and
You're
I'll give
good.
your comments on this here in a minute. But this whole Minnesota, this whole Minneapolis ICE radical leftist communist protesters, it's just all lies in the mainstream media, folks. They're coming out here and saying that these people like Renee Good or Alex Pretty were just walking on the street, minding their own business. They had no interest whatsoever. And some ICE guy just comes over there and starts giving them shit and blows them away. No, these are members of highly trained, highly organized Minneapolis ICE Watch radical leftists who are targeting these people. They are deliberately following them around. They're going on social media and posting the whereabouts and the movements of all these ICE officials. And then they're swarming those areas and they're getting in their faces and they're blowing whistles and horns obnoxiously if there is an illegal. And a lot of these that they're going after, it's not just Jose, the guy that rakes lawns and stuff. These are criminals. These are like, I mean, they're all criminals, but these are like rapists and murderers and, really bad people that have come into this country that ICE is focused on. And they're trying to intervene and impede lawful action by immigration, customs, enforcement officers in any way possible. Then when these ICE agents that are sent basically on a deployment to these areas, they're staying in hotels and motels and things, they're following them there. And they're banging their drums and tooting their horns and everything they can do to try to keep these guys from getting a decent night's sleep. So is it any wonder why they're wearing masks? Can you imagine what these radical communists would do to these people if they were maskless? They would dox them. They would go after their families. They would post their pictures on social media. And then somebody's going to Charlie Kirk them.
Well, and I'm not even speaking on the justification of the use of force, but just from a strategic standpoint, okay, just speaking strictly strategy, right, Jay? Tactful strategy. When Trump was in office the first time, y'all remember in 2020, right? Was the year of COVID, and then we had mass riots, like cities were burning down. Seattle was it Seattle or Portland was on fire?
Portland.
Remember
Seattle was
Portland.
bad too, but Portland
Remember
had the Jazz.
exactly. Remember when they like literally barricaded half the city and said this is like a no policing zone, and the Democrats like let this stuff happen, and then this kind of like just completely threw off Trump's first term. He had COVID, right? So I think he learned his lesson, and I think he came out with big guns this term. He knew something was going to happen. He knew George Soros and these radical left-wing groups were going to organize and be right back at it again. So I think his strategy was to preempt them. I mean, my goodness, he was even trying to send in, wasn't it the Marines in LA earlier this year or last year? So I think he wanted to, come out with a show of force and say, hey, this is the year of law and order. You guys are not even going to do this. And he knew it was going to happen in 2026 as well because of the midterms, because if the Democrats can swing the House, even just the House, not even both House and Senate, if they can swing just the House back to the Democrat majority, he's going to have a very hard time moving his agenda forward because now, did you guys see that there was a runoff election? So now the Republicans only have a 1-seat majority. So Speaker Mike Johnson he's really going to have to navigate this and tread carefully because they're at risk of losing a House majority. So that's my perspective. I think Trump was just coming out with a bang and was like, listen, none of this nonsense. I'm sending ICE. I'm sending Border Patrol. He wanted to send the Marines and that got shot down. But he did send the National Guard in. So from my perspective, I think it was strategic on his part.
2 words: insurrection act. Implement it now.
Yeah.
Declare these assholes terrorists and then go after their funding sources. This is all being funded by big money leftist, hardcore leftist, communist groups. Shut them down. Throw their asses in prison. And send in the troops. And if some radical judge from the DC circuit, just like Judge Anna Reyes, some Uruguayan piece of shit judge, how the hell is she even a judge? She comes out at the last minute and says, I'm blocking Trump's declaration of an end of temporary protective status for these 20,000 Haitians that Biden and DeWine dumped into Springfield, Ohio from
How did that
2020
happen?
to 2024. It's a bunch of crap. An absolute. Can you imagine? And it can happen here. That's what people don't realize is that Springfield, Ohio, in 2020, the 2020 census, I just researched this. Springfield, Ohio had 2.2% foreign-born population as of the 2020 census. Today, Ohio Capital Journal just did an article. They said that it's a quarter is foreign-born. It's all the Haitians. So you have a city of about 60,000 people, and a quarter of them are Haitian, all in a matter of 5 years. Because Biden and DeWine and all these NGOs that were working in conjunction, they're all making money. I could go on and on about this because I've researched it very deeply. It's a huge fraud, a huge scam, and a dagger in the backs of Ohioans, and especially Ohioans living in Springfield. And it could happen here, Damion. You know, you could have some asshole like Mike DeWine come in and agree, Marion, you need 10,000 Somalians, or you need, 10,000 Afghanis. And we're going to dump them in Marion, and we're going to subsidize them and their housing and everything. Overnight, that shit is being done across this country. And Donald Trump, to his credit, said, I'm ending that temporary protective status. That earthquake that happened in Haiti, that shit's over. So they can't say that they need refuge from the earthquake devastation. Get their asses back to Haiti. And then you have this judge, Anna Reyes, that comes in and says, oh, no, you can't do that. And she'll end up losing because it's a lawful action. It's a lawful executive action by President Donald Trump. She'll end up losing, but it ties their hands for a period of time. That's what this judicial activism does. This lawfare that the left uses over and over and over again. And it's got to end. Honestly, Trump, go Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson famously told the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Marshall, when Marshall ruled against them, Jackson said, Justice Marshall has made his decision, and I have made mine. Now let's see Justice Marshall enforce his.
Or
that's what needs to be done.
Or
Not playing games with these assholes. Invoke the Insurrection Act, arrest these bastards, and clean this country up. Save this country. It's dying. Oh my God. Okay, rant over, Damion. What are your thoughts on this madness that is the ICE situation, immigration, and all these leftist organizations?
So, obviously, you see a lot of, what is it? From the left side, I think you hit it spot on when you said, like, they like to play with the emotional concept of it. I think at the end of the day, a life is a life. In terms of, like, if it's an everyday person like me and you, obviously a life is a life, and there should be some safeguard, but at the same time, there has to be a line of, common sense. If a cop's driving down the road and I run after that cop, odds are the situation's not going to, let me rephrase that. If I'm running at the officer, hands flailing with something in my hand or something, and I'm just running straight at them, probably not going to be a good outcome. And I think that's, I guess, where, like, the line has to be crossed is at a common sense area. I was always told, you mess around, you find out, I guess, in a sense. Same concept applies. I don't think anybody's saying with the Charlie Kirk thing, you've seen obviously left sides were like, hallelujah. And then practical people are like, that was a life. Respect a life. A life is a life regardless. He was doing literally, he was just speaking, just like we're doing right now. I don't think anybody should be persecuted for that. Now, if you run in front of cops and if a cop's arresting somebody and you're trying to assert yourself in front of him because you want a good picture of him, or you want to record him and get his best angle, so you're trying to insert yourself between him and the criminal, I don't want to say you get what you have coming to you, but at the same time, if you insert yourself into a situation that is already escalated or already in a bad angle, you inserting yourself is not going to do nothing or do nothing positive. It's one
Renee,
thing.
I'm interject here. Renee
There you
Good. There's a reason why you see when you watch that video, her vehicle is perpendicular to the sidewalk. She was blocking the freaking street. That's what they do. So they'll say, "Oh, ICE is spotted at the intersection of 5th and Main or whatever. Get out of here, illegals, and we'll block the street." And then they act like jackasses and blow whistles and things like that. And then what she do? She accelerated and attempted to assault with her vehicle that ICE agent. So that's deadly force. So he blew her away. You talk about FAFO. Yep, that's what happens, Renee Good. FAFO. Same thing with Alex Preddy. Family tells him, don't go and intervene and try to impede ICE and all this stuff. What does he do? Goes with the gun. And I'm all in favor of Second Amendment rights. You have every right. But no, you don't have a right to go in there and try to block law enforcement from a lawful arrest or detainment. I would never. Nobody in their right mind would think that. If you see somebody, a cop got somebody pulled over on the side of the road, do you get out and you go over there and you get in the cop's face and say, you can't do this? You can't pull this person over or whatever and, try to block him and stuff? No. You say, oh, shit, there's a cop. I better get over and give him a wide berth here, and you go on your merry way. That's what you do. That's not what this is. This is deliberate, orchestrated, radical, color revolution type shit that's going on right now, and it needs to be squashed. Okay, rant over. Damion, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. I definitely agree with you. You used a great example. Cops pull somebody over. You're not inserting yourself into the situation. If you're driving by, do you take a picture or record it? Maybe. If you have, I don't know if you guys use Snapchat, but if you have something, you might be like, oh shoot, there's the fuzz or whatever local term or there's the police. You're not casually, oh shoot, there's the cops, let me pull in behind him, get out of your car, and then like zoom in on his face while he's talking to these people. And that common sense. I mean, a life is a life, but at the same time, why would you risk your life over something? Like, if you want to stand across the street, record or do whatever you got to do. I don't typically see, I don't want to, praise law enforcement because you do get one bad apple out of a bunch that kind of ruins. Marion's had a great, record of officials. Would not put it past it for future records of any officials. That's just, that's the history there. But I you gotta have common sense. There's, you insert yourself into something where, you're gonna have something happen to you. That's what's gonna happen. I don't really know how to break it down. I mean, FAFO. I mean,
that's it.
Just ignore the situation and life goes on.
That's the new motto here on the Watchmen's Report. FAFO, folks. That's it. Richard, what are your thoughts, buddy? You're still awake over there?
Oh, yeah. I'm just listening. So I think we have a macro issue and a micro issue here we're dealing with. The macro issue is we've got like a decade-long coordinated effort to undermine the people of America and the Trump administration. And I think there's a very coordinated plan that probably goes outside of our borders even, obviously. And that plan, I think what we do is, as humans, we kind of look at everything through our perspective, our paradigm. So I think we assume some genuine desire to have a fair or free society out of the Democrat side, and they're not geared towards that. Their ethics are terrible. And so I think we're assuming that they're being, earnest in our dealings, but they're not. What they're doing is they seek power at any cost. So this long game plan they've been playing out isn't going to be something they're going to give up. They know that they've lost the will of the American people. So the only way for them to win today is by cheating or by basically fracturing the country, which is what we're seeing. They've got a plan, on the surface, most of those Democrats look like complete morons when they talk. But behind the scenes is a very intricate plan where they have laid the framework for what is essentially a new American Civil War. And the entire plan, and like going back to the Insurrection Act, same concept. They put these things in popular media. They've used all the dog whistles, if you will, of fascism and Nazism to the point where they don't mean anything. And then they've got what are essentially useful idiots on the street. They're, a mixture of those people and then agitators that are professionals, basically paramilitary people that are inside of those groups. And they're taking these idiots on the street like cattle and moving them around to commit violent acts and obstruct. And the whole idea, at least from what I can see, is to prompt the Trump administration to do something like invoke Insurrection Act. Because I think they put the idea, if you've seen the movie Civil War that came out a few years ago, it basically follows this same synopsis, right? You've got a president that is a fascist that has taken up arms against the American people. And then there's a war that breaks out. It's like the Western powers versus the government. And at the end of the movie, they execute the president in the White House because he's a fascist. And they put these ideas and concepts in pop culture. And it's basically to reinforce those concepts of, obviously the president being a fascist or even, like everybody in this, video right now, we're all fascists by their definition. So that broad brush, then, fascists and Nazis don't deserve to take another breath. That's how they look at life. So they have no problem with interrupting us. The government's now illegitimate. January 20th of 2025, it was completely legitimate. Today, it's illegitimate. So that's how that's the lens they view everything through. It's by any means. And so on the micro side of that is, going back to where we have our civil liberties versus the authority of the government, supremacy of the federal government. Obviously, what's going on in Minnesota and all across the country is legal, but reality doesn't matter. Perception of reality is what matters. And to the Democrats, those people are completely indoctrinated. So their perception of reality is that there is nothing legal going on, and that they literally believe that that the Gestapo is, the brown shirts are out there pulling innocent people out and abducting them, and which isn't the truth, obviously. But how do you convince them to leave that thought process? Well, you really can't, because you've got weak-minded people that are convinced of this, and then the paid agitators come in, and then this coordinated effort. There's a lot of writing on these things too, but where we go from here, the Insurrection Act is the obvious option, but I really think that plays in their hand, because if they do that instantly, it's, an appeal to 1930s Germany. Instantly, it's going to be, it's Kristallnacht. It's going to be book burnings. They will make an analogy to the Third Reich every opportunity they get. So there is, in the court of public opinion, there's no winning it. So it's really going to come down to keeping the legal government in the country legal. And, as much as it sounds absurd, we have a fallen legislature. So that's where all that power that needs to fix all this lies. We can't, the road courts, we can't fix. The president can't fix those. Even the SCOTUS can't really fix those. I mean, they just don't have the capacity to hear everything that needs to be heard, which is the point of slow walking the administration. And then they get back to the point where, like you said, we come into the 2026 midterms are right around the corner. It seems like half people in Congress are in on it, even on the Republican side, because they've taken almost no action on the administration's executive orders and things like that. So we've got a president that's he really learned a lot, and I think it was God's providence that the 2020 election went the way it did, because I don't think that the consecutive Trump term would have looked like what it does today. They laid a lot of groundwork, and I think that made them more effective coming in and understanding what they're up against. But I just don't know that it's the problem is if it was just the government, it'd be fine. But we have a confidence issue in the American people today, and
they're going to
that
use
has to be one of
lies,
the
deception, and propaganda,
propaganda.
no matter what is done,
Massive.
Richard. That's my opinion. So you can go soft, you can go Trump 2020 or 2016, that first term, and you can go soft and really not do a whole lot because you don't want to offend people and these radicals and everything, and they'll come after you anyway. Or you can go hard, and if they come, you go harder. That's personally what I think the only option is, because just look at what happened. You had Joe Biden under his sleepy watch. You got 10 to 14 million illegals that poured into this country, and they were just flagrant with it. They were showing these hordes of masses from all over the world, not just Central America and South America, but from all over the world, just like a zombie horde from,
Migrant
what's that
caravan.
show? Yeah. What's that show that we used to watch? The Zombie
The
Show
Walking
on
Dead.
AMC.
The Walking
Yeah.
Dead.
The Walking Dead. It's like a scene from The Walking Dead. And they were showing this and, putting it on nightly news and stuff. And like, the horde.
What's even worse
The horde
than
has
that, though?
made it to the Rio Grande and it's crossing over the Rio Grande and stuff. Oh, the horde's in the country and nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything.
They need to fly
And
in.
you had 10 to
million
14 million people that were extra illegals that were brought into this country. And then what has Trump done in a year of enforcement action? Okay, if you want to talk about self-deportations, maybe up to 1 million. That's nowhere near enough. So if he's out in another 3 years and they bring in 15 million illegals, then it's all for naught. We're already 15 point, as of 2020, we're 15.8% is foreign born in this country. And that's not including all the illegals that don't fill out the frickin' census form. We have tons of foreign people from all over the world that are in this country. And do they give a shit about us? Do they buy into what it means to be an American? Do they believe in free market principles and individual rights and liberties and the Constitution, all within the framework of English common law and our traditions and values when it comes to that? No, they don't. No, they don't. And then on top of that, we have a welfare state. If you want to have open borders, folks, then you can't have a welfare state. You have one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to get all these economic migrants, people that come over here and say, well, I'm just going to sit on my ass and collect a government check now that I'm in the United States. And the Democrats will gladly give it to them. They'll gladly take your money out of your pocketbook and give it to somebody else that doesn't want to work. That's just how it is, because it gives them an existence. And they can create all these different welfare jobs and bureaucratic jobs. So that's my only fear, Richard, is you got to go hard and you got to go heavy and you can't back down. And if you back down, what's going to happen? You got some of these assholes that are saying, we need to defund ICE, man. Need to get rid of it entirely. Well, we could see that. We could honestly see that under the next administration. You get a commie law or somebody like that, AOC, maybe even a Gavin Newsom administration, and they could just say, we're disbanding ICE. There is no longer immigration. And that's under the exclusive. Immigration, folks, immigration enforcement is under the exclusive jurisdiction of the federal government. So if they got rid of it and had open borders, nothing's going to stand between you and some rapist from Guatemala or El Salvador or a murderer from, Venezuela coming over here. And then they have all these left-wing prosecutors that are George Soros funded, most of them, and they deliberately don't prosecute in a lot of these leftist cities, these blue cities. The same places that were burning up their cities. And we were talking earlier about that Chaz no government, no police zone. They had these prosecutors that just didn't prosecute people. And you look at these you know, I'm sure, hopefully, a lot of you have seen it. Go on YouTube or Rumble, maybe, and shoplifting videos and stuff. In these leftist cities and stuff, they'll just walk in. They'll go behind the counter. They'll grab what they want of some expensive goods, and then they just walk out. And nothing's done because they know that the prosecutor in that city won't do shit to them. So it's just free for all. Take what you want. And again, is that law and order? Is that how we come to think of how things should be in this country? No. But that's the difference between somebody that was born, bred, and raised here, that understands what it means to be an American, and somebody that doesn't. So we're getting a little bit late here. Damion, is there any other topics that are important to your campaign? Now, we don't know if you're going to find yourself on the ballot. We won't know that until the 17th. But what is there anything else that you want to touch here before we get off the program?
Realistically, I guess there is one more. One thing I have not heard anybody mention, and the sad reality is I'm seeing more and more of it, but you see teachers and professionals crossing lines that probably shouldn't be crossed. You got cases where there are false accusations, and I use Ratliff as an example of that. However, I think I've seen 3 or 4 in like Marion area or within the surrounding area, just in the last year or two, which, why are we expanding on, predators? I have heard that as an issue or a concern as far as people are like, why this predator only get 6 months, a year? You have short-term limits for somebody who is literally harming generations. I mean, the amount of damage somebody can do in that position is not just, hurting a child. That's hurting that child as a generation, that child's future generation. And I guess you just don't hear I have not heard any candidate across. There might be somebody who has mentioned it. However, there's little to no concern in terms of, how these teachers are being, I don't really want to say supervised, but, what's going on in these classrooms, emails, just districts in general. I find, ludicrous, I guess sickening. My son goes to school. I guess educational accountability is just in the trash. My son went to school, and embarrassing for us, or I guess it would be embarrassing for him if he was a little older, but he had an accident in school. They actually let him, or they had him sit in those clothes all day. He came home with
Feces?
Soiled. Yeah, soil. He had an accident in his pants. They had literally let him sit in it. I guess he had a sub, and I substitute too. So I'm already appalled by the whole situation, period. It doesn't matter what angle you try to spin it. Absolutely absurd. But 8 hours, realistically, is probably 4 hours he had sat in it, but the school had sent him home in that. And I'm like, if I would have sent him to school, I promise you the health department or the children's services, don't even get me started on that, because can't even rely on them. They're getting arrested for drug charges. But if I send my child to school in feces or, and absolutely terrible clothing or in his urine or whatever the case is, they are calling children's services. So why is my son, being sent home in that same way? I just think educational accountability is in the trash, and we wonder why we have so many issues with education as like a whole. Education as a whole department is like, there needs to be a lot of change, and in regards to how teachers and stuff are interacting with children, like the kids and stuff, there needs to be proper change, and we need to be able to hold those teachers to higher standards. I don't want to mark them up as a politician, but there's somebody who you should be able to look up to. That's somebody, a teacher I went to school with, or, I had in school. You typically deal with those teachers 5, 6, 7, 8 years. It's, quarter of your life as you're going through school. So, being able to rely on those people, that's a big factor. And, the schools sit here and you want to talk about money, but they want to ask for more money, and yet they can't even protect the students. That's a concern. Another issue. So, I've seen this personally. There was a child's family who had lost health insurance. Child could not speak to like the school psychologist. Crazy because I guess a school is going to pretty much disregard, I guess, a child's health, overall welfare, mental health, however you want to spin that off. But why aren't we, I guess, you have a lot of money in education. You have a lot of other factors in education, but yet it seems like it's one of the fewer highlighted areas. I guess that's a big topic that I just wanted to cover. There's zero accountability.
It's a mess, and it's going to take a lot of reform. Personally, I think across the board, you want to talk about spending, you want to talk about how you fund local government, schools, everything. There needs to be fundamental reform, fundamental change, not just a little bit, not just tweak this, change that. It's got to be big time, huge reform, monumental change. And
now,
that's what,
I was going to say, I want to ask you one thing. How do you feel in Senate Bill 56?
What's 56?
Oh, that was where they regulated not just marijuana, but the taxes behind it. Pretty much did a whole reform to the amendment that passed on the what was it? It was on the
added the constitutional amendment to legalize recreational marijuana.
Yeah, but it wasn't constitutional. It was actually just an amendment with how it was worded. And so Senate Bill 56, actually, if you look at it, it changed the supply or distribution tax to 26%. It re-regulated where and when you can use THC products. I believe that's also the one that regulated the hemp production, or no?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I personally I don't partake of marijuana. It's not a huge issue to me. I mean, I don't want everybody walking around half baked all the time.
No. I agree with that entirely. I just know, like, obviously that amendment or that ballot pass was like very marginalized. It was like a 54, 56%. It was very, very small margin. But I know a lot of people were complaining. Well, not a lot, but a few of the people that I spoke to were complaining about how they had re-regulated things to certain extents, I guess.
So circumventing the amendment initiative when they did the ballot initiative for the
Yeah, it
Constitution.
seems like a lot of people are very upset that originally, I guess, if you would have voted on that issue, and found yourself in favor of that issue. I did not vote on that issue myself, so I'm not gonna, I can't endorse or I'm not gonna, side with either side. However, I do agree with you. Regulation obviously has to happen. Same with alcohol, obviously. You don't want some person walking out front of the school casually drinking what is it, like a sixth or a pint, whatever the alcohol measurement is, walking in front of the school drinking a pint of Jack Daniels or something. There obviously you got to have that regulation, but I think some people are. I guess the concern was like how extensive that regulation had went, and I'm not sure if you looked at who voted on that, but it would have been a lot of term limited Republicans. Our entire house is Republican, so it doesn't outside of I think 5 or 8, or it's a very small number, but pretty much everybody sided with it. That was it looks to be that what they were term limited, which I just found that ironic personally.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't pay a lot of attention to that. My big thing is like finance and taxes and things like that. That's what matters primarily to me. Immigration stuff. Marijuana, like you said, I mean, if you're going to have a controlled substance, regulated substance, is there a whole lot of difference between marijuana and alcohol? A lot of people would argue that alcohol is worse than marijuana. But
I
again,
feel
you look at a lot of leftist states that have like legalized recreational use of stuff, and it's like a freaking Bob Marley concert, like everywhere. You go everywhere in the whole state, and everybody's just up in smoke, Cheech and Chong. Do you really want that? Is that the culmination, the pinnacle of your civilization and your society in this country? No, it's not. So I will give, before we let go here for the dismiss for the night, is anybody else have any pressing matters they want to close on? Jay, Richard, Robert?
I don't think
All right.
so.
Well, Damion, we greatly appreciate you joining us here on the Watchmen's Report. It's been very insightful. We learned a little bit about you, about your candidacy, and your opinions on some national topics. So we wish you the very best of luck. So tomorrow again, folks, is the deadline to file petitions to have a chance to appear on the ballot in November or on the primary, which is going to be May 5th, coming up here. So if Damion has enough valid signatures, according to the Board of Elections, and he will appear on the Republican primary ballot for state representative of the 86th district at that primary election on May 5th. If he gets the nod from Republican voters, then he'll be on the November ballot for the general election up against a Democrat. And the Democrat, if you didn't hear today, I believe the only one that has filed or will be filing is another Marion guy, Kent Halloran. So one of these four, right? Thanks, Richard. One of these four, between Wesleyan Davis, between Ben Weber, Stephen Wolf, and Damion Greenawalt, will be going up against the Democrat Kent Halloran, presumably, unless Kent doesn't have enough valid signatures. That's possible too. In which case, whoever wins the Republican primary will win the general election. So those petitions will be reviewed and validated on February 17th. So we should know more soon. So Damion, good luck on the campaign trail. I'm sure that we'll have you back on here if you will join us once again on the Watchmen's Report. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Great conversations with all of you. Everybody has, great perspective and arguments for everything. Honestly, it was good hearing, somebody else's opinion. Especially people who misinformation is very widespread. It's good dealing with people who actually, do some thorough background research on stuff aside from just kind of pointing the finger going, we think it's this way,
That's right. We will not deal in misinformation. We are not Scott Spears. So on that note, for Robert Landon, for Jason Foreman, for Richard McDonald, and our special guest, Damion Greenawalt, I'm Cody Higley, and this has been the Watchmen's Report. And folks, remember, it's critically important. A watchman is always vigilant. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Sound the alarm! To arms! They are here!